So, this is going to be a fun walk-in cooler service call I got to go run right now. Let's hope this slows down a little bit.
This video is brought to you by Sporlan. Quality, integrity, and tradition. If you guys haven't already, please go check out the new HVACR Tools YouTube channel. There's a link in the show notes. We're doing tool reviews on there, myself and the overtime crew. And we need your support to get that channel up and rolling. We just launched it, so please go check it out, HVACR Tools on YouTube, and then there'll be a link in the show notes of the video.
All right, we are called on the walk-in cooler not working. They said it was like 50 degrees, but it says 38 right now on the thermometer. So it must have been high in temp for a while, because now it's 38 and it's nice and cool in here. So we're gonna have to jump onto the roof and figure out what the deal is. None of the coils, we got a 2-coil system. None of them are iced up, so that's good. All right, I've got some, we've got some nasty weather right now. Okay, the call is on the walk-in cooler. You can hear thunder too, that's great. I'm just gonna walk over here right now because it's down to temp now. So I don't understand. Compressor's not running. Looks like we're gonna have a refrigerant leak because there's oil all over that service valve. Okay, I'm just doing an assessment because of the rain. I didn't bring all my tools up. I have them in the attic, so I'm just gonna kind of look around and see if I see anything interesting. So, first thing I notice, it is 4:59 p.m. I don't know if you guys saw that, that was lightning. And check out the defrost clock. It says 4 a.m. We do a long defrost in the middle of the night. So this guy just came out of a long all-night defrost. That very well could explain why we had high temperatures on the walk-in. So I want to see it turn on. I know that we're going to need to dig into that potential refrigerant leak, but if I can avoid doing it right now because of this rain that's coming down on me, because I drove through that nasty hail, it's coming here right now, so I want to try to avoid that. So if I can get it to come on and run a clear sight glass, I'm not even going to put gauges on it today because I would assume that that defrost issue would be the problem, and I'll come back and put gauges on it and find that leak, but I'm going to let it run for a few minutes and make sure. Looking at the condenser, it's really dirty. So we'll definitely be selling them on a condenser cleaner too. Looks like we topped off the charge in September. It still hasn't turned on yet, damn it. Freaking lightning keeps going off on me. So we're going, yeah, that's comforting, it's right over my head. So again, I'm just waiting for it to turn on. I'm still just kind of poking my nose around. The roof actually doesn't look that bad we haven't done any preventative maintenances or done any work here since probably June or so. And here comes the hail. It's coming, just starting to come down right now. So I'm gonna probably put this back together and probably scoot out of here before I get all blasted with it. All right, it came on and the sight glass is running clear. Now, I don't know if it has the proper winter charge because it's cold, but it's not as the coldest it'll ever be. It's probably only like 48, and here they can drop down into the high 20s, very rare, you know, every once in a while. So we still have a refrigerant leak. We know we do because there's oil all over this, but this is enough for now. I'm confident that the defrost clock was the problem for now. I took the defrost out of the picture, so it's not going to get stuck like that, and we'll come back when it's not raining and go through the system properly. Well, today is a little bit nicer. It's still supposed to rain, but it's not supposed to rain for a couple hours, so we're going to try to knock this out. I'm going to go ahead and start. We're definitely going to address the defrost clock issue, but I'm going to start with cleaning the rack before it starts raining on me. So we're going to go ahead and power everything down, give it a good cleaning, and then we'll address all the other issues after that. Well, even though it's still March, it's getting to be that time when we're going to start cleaning coils. So this will actually be my first coil cleaning of the season. I mean, I've cleaned condensers in restaurants, but yeah, we're going to get this guy dialed in. So got my wand, of course. Simple process. We're going to start by rinsing, getting all the big stuff off, getting the coil wet, giving a surface that's smooth and easy for the coil cleaner to glide through. So let's knock it out. So on this side of the rack, I leave these panels on because from experience, the water comes down and hits the pressure control in the compressor, which, you know, isn't really great for having water raining down on top of it. The rack itself has a protective panel inside that doesn't allow all the water that I'm washing down right now to drain on top of the compressors and the pressure controls and stuff. So that's why we leave those panels on. Now over here is ice machine condensers that are no longer used, so there's no point in opening that up and washing those. They've got remote condensers now separated from the rack, which in my opinion is how they should be in the first place. So get in here, do a rinse too. Do everything we can before we actually put cleaner on it to get all the big stuff off. So, and that stuff's coming out pretty nasty. Very important too is this trough. See the trough that water's draining out of? Yeah, that trough fills up with mud. Let's see if we've got a bunch in there. Yep, look at that. It just fills up with mud. So you got to get all that mud out or it's just gonna dry up and get sucked back on the condenser. So I'll have to get up in there too and rinse all that stuff out. Got a new coil gun Refrigeration Technologies came out with that has new dilution ratios that are better tailored to the venom pack. So I'm gonna give this guy a shot right now. Just get that coil cleaner all in there. Now I am using the brightener, which is a super heavy duty cleaner, so we got to be really careful. But you see we got really good foaming action going on. We're just gonna let it get in there, work its way. I'll spray from the bottom too, and then we'll give it a good rinse. But with the brightener, you have to be very careful because this will etch the coil, okay? If you use the yellow condenser coil cleaner, it will not etch the coil. But for a buildup like I have on this one, I definitely want the heavy duty strength one. Give this guy a good little rinse. Definitely want to get it all through here too to make sure that you don't got any left on those copper. And we'll just rinse from both sides. It's nice and slow, it's not a race. And that's what I like. If you're very careful with this wand, it has a rubber tip and you just barely let it touch the fins. It doesn't damage them, but you can just glide it across the fins to make sure you get a nice, even, you know, rinse. Getting all the stuff out. And just because I do it from the top, I'm still gonna have to do it from the bottom too, because there's still gonna be more surface stuff. Just takes time. We're not in a race. One thing I despise about these racks is how the water gets trapped in there. Now I did my best to rinse the big stuff out and I've drilled holes, but we can't drill holes down, which I'd love to do because the rack is sealed. It seals itself kind of, and the water will end up causing roof leaks. So it's kind of a bummer, but you know, I try to get the big stuff out, but it's never going to be perfect. And I'm not going to bring a vacuum up here, but just got to be careful though, because you are putting wires in water and stuff. You just got to be cautious when starting it up. But this guy's all cleaned up. We're going to go ahead and put the panels back on and then finish on the repair. All right, I've let the rack kind of drip dry. You know, most of the stuff drained out as best as possible. There's still some dirt left in there, but you just kind of want to let it dry a little bit before you turn it on. So it's time to get back in here and start firing things up. We're going to hit the condenser fan motors first. They both fired up. That's a plus. And then work our way down. Now the ice machines aren't being used, so we're not going to fire those ones up. Everything should be coming on because it's been off for about an hour. You want to listen and hear everything turn on too. Now everything should be under a load, not a heavy load, but everything should be under a load. So within about 5 minutes, all of our sight glasses should clear up. We are running a wet condenser right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if they start out flashing, but then as the head pressure control valves flood the condenser fully. So we're already starting out clear. Walk-in freezer, you can't really judge that one because it's the evaporator fan motors don't start up right away, so it's going to take a minute. But so far, everything's running clear except for this one, system D. Looks like we're flashing a little bit, but we're going to give it a minute to see if it clears up. It could just take a minute. At a minimum, I will top off the charge on that just to eliminate a service call and bring it up to the customer. But you know what? It looks like it's clearing up. So I think we're okay. But we're going to let it run for a little bit, make sure everything's cool. And then we're going to look into this guy. So what we're going to do, we're going to let it run, but what we're going to do about this defrost clock So what they're doing here, this defrost clock is bad. So when I was here last night, I set the time on it. It's not 2 p.m. right now, it's 11 a.m. So this clock is no good. But that clock is kind of not really needed, because what we're gonna do is go ahead and put a key to therm temp plus defrost controller down in the evaporator and completely eliminate this clock from the picture. And then the temperature controller will control the liquid line solenoid valve down in the box and turn it on and off. I decided that before I go downstairs and deal with the temp control, that I was gonna go ahead and pump the system down and check the liquid level. But then I got to thinking, because I saw refrigerant oil potentially all over that valve, why not leak check it before I take the caps off? And I've said this before, it's a good idea when you know there's a potential leak to shut it off and leak check it before you take the caps and disturb and or possibly correct the leak source. So I got the Stratus right here. We're gonna go at it, see if we can find a leak. It's kind of giving me deja vu. I feel like I've looked for this leak before. It may not even be low because I marked the liquid level back in September. So I'm just doing my due diligence just to double check. But yeah, the Stratus is not picking up a single thing, and we have it on super mode. Sometimes they're just tiny, tiny little leaks. Alright, I, for the life of me, am not picking anything up, and I'm using the Stratus on super mode. I went ahead and shut the rack down, let it sit stable for a good 10 minutes to make sure that we're not getting any you know, air moving, because if you have the condenser fan motor running, it could kind of mess with the refrigerant leak and move it to a different place so the leak detector might not pick it up. I, for the life of me, am not picking anything up. So the next thing we're going to do, just leak check right around this guy real quick. Nothing, nothing. This thing is so quiet. Nothing in there. Yeah, I am not seeing anything as far as that goes. So we're gonna go ahead and take the caps off and continue the leak check with the caps off. Just pulled those guys off. What you can do is hit the caps up. See if you get any. Or is it? Yeah, it's gonna be in that guy, so it's gonna be right in here. It's just a slow leak through the packing, I bet. And it just barely seeps out. Oh, look at that. So there's a slow leak seeping out of that too. And even if you have this cap on there, I mean, it's still gonna seep. Let's see if it actually has the gasket in it. Yeah, there's a gasket in there. It's there. But it'll still seep out of there. Out of curiosity, can we tighten up that packing anymore? I'm just kind of curious. Yeah, the packing will tighten a little bit more, so it could be that we just need to tighten up the packing. And then what about this guy? Is this guy tight? Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it seems tight. So it seems like we have a slight leak out of this right here. And maybe something out of the packing, but let's see if the system's low. It might just be super microscopic, you know, and just barely leaking every once in a blue moon. So we're gonna go ahead and gauge up and then do a pump down and check the liquid level to see if it's where I left it back in September. Whenever you crack these guys, you immediately want to purge them. So come on over here to the high side, purge, make sure you get all the air out of there in case there's any air. Same thing on this guy. If I can get this on there. Purge it right here. Cool, just to make sure you get all the air so it's not getting stuck in there. All right, we're gonna give the guy a pump down on the receiver now. Whenever you're working on these receivers to do a pump down, just like on that suction line over there, you wanna loosen the packing gland. It'll make it last a lot longer. So what we're gonna do now is go ahead and pump down the receiver. And what that's gonna do is we're gonna front seat this king valve, okay? Meaning we're gonna push the stem all the way into the valve, and it's gonna shut off the refrigerant flow coming out of the receiver. So going into that dryer, there will be no more refrigerant flow. So I'm pumping it down right now. It's kind of awkward where it's at. king valve is now front seated, meaning the stem went all the way in. I have the cap on that end right there because that cap has refrigerant pressure at it right now. So you want to make sure the cap's on there, your gauges are on there. So we're going to let the system run until it pumps down. All the refrigerant is going to back up into here. And if there's no refrigerant leaks, my liquid level should be right at that yellow mark, because that's where I left it on 9/13/20 when I marked it. My refrigerant pumped down. You see my low side went down, but it's still rising because it's boiling refrigerant out of the oil. So it might happen a few times. You can also take a little screwdriver and just push up on the bellows of the pressure control and get it to go down. But these scrolls don't like to go really low in pressure, so we're probably going to leave it about there. See how it's kind of stabilized out. And now what we're going to do is take a heat producing device, warm up the receiver. Now it's very important, the heat producing device that I'm going to use cannot overheat the receiver, because there is a soft plug or a internal pressure relief, and if it gets too hot it will blow out and then that receiver becomes trash. Okay, so the heat producing device that I'm going to use is not going to exceed the soft plug temperature. We're going to go up and down the receiver, get it warm, and then we're going to check the liquid level. What'll happen is, because we warm it up, the vapor section of the refrigerant, so the liquid will stack up in the receiver, and then the point at which there's no more liquid and it's vapor, you'll know because there'll be a massive temperature difference. It'll be really hot. On this guy, it's not a repairable soft plug. Some receivers have like a mechanical fitting. This one is right there. You can see it, and that's the blowout point. So if the receiver gets too hot, there's a low temperature solder right there, and it'll pop it and leak out all the refrigerant to vent it before you have a catastrophic explosion. You don't want the vessel to explode because there'd be shrapnel going everywhere and that'd be bad. All right, so we're gonna heat this guy up. We definitely look low on refrigerant. You can clearly see the liquid level temperature change right there. When my dot goes down, boom, 62, 63, 69, bam, 100 degrees. And you can feel it. I'm running my fingers up. It's cold, it's cold, it's cold. Boom, it starts to get warm right there, and you can also see the level. So we definitely need to top off the charge. Well, we can clearly see our temperature change is all the way up here now, and you see how you have the orangish color down here. So we've now filled and added refrigerant and got the liquid level up to about right here. So that's enough refrigerant for now. It's still marked at the same spot. I weighed the cylinder down at the van. That way when I take it down, I'll weigh it again and find out how much I put in it. All right, we get our power from this breaker, which I have turned off. Let's double check power to make sure it's off, and it is. We're dead. That sends power to, looks like maybe the the pressure control, and then one leg comes over here to the time clock itself to power the time clock. So you got to power the motor, and then you got to power the switched leg. So we have 2 reds and 2 blacks, and we have no power at the clock. So what we are going to do, all that you're doing is bringing power into the clock on the reds and the blacks right here, and then it's jumping over to the common terminal of the switch leg, and then it's going out on the 4 terminal, going to they have a pump down solenoid in the rack. So all that we are going to do is power that pump down solenoid at all times whenever power's turned on. So yeah, and then downstairs we'll use the existing temperature controller, which controls another pump down solenoid. There's 2 of them redundant. So the temp control will now be your only source of defrost, and we're going to use a Ketatherm temp plus defrost controller. So all right, so the time clock is removed, and all that we had was a black and a red going directly to the solenoid. We have those going directly to the breaker now. I'll clean them up here in a minute, and then yeah, we're good to go. So the time clock is out of the picture, and then looks like yeah, I had forgot. I need to come up with a screw for that guy. When I redid this rack a while back, I was still missing a screw. I need to get that, because one of those fuses isn't doing anything. I just realized that. One of these days I'll come across one of those. Yeah, so we're gonna go downstairs to the EVAP now and wire in the new temp control and set up the defrost on that. I'm just getting some models and serial numbers down, and this compressor, the tag is worn off. It's all worn out and you can't read it anymore. A little quick tip on these Copeland compressors, there's another tag underneath the main tag. So this is a ZB14 KCE PFV 130. So I'm gonna write that down in my invoicing software. That way I have it tracked for the future. So to clarify, this tag right here eventually will get worn off, and there's another tag underneath there. And that's when you peel this tag off, you'll see that other tag. Now I didn't go crazy, but you can kind of see it right there underneath. CB14 KCE PF5, so it's good to know. So you cannot always assume. I made a mistake here. I went downstairs to go change the temp control, and I realized that it's not running. It's like 45 degrees in the box, and I was kind of confused because the compressor's not running. This is a normally open solenoid valve. When you power it, it closes. So I need to disconnect that power. It's important to understand the different types of solenoid valves that we have and the way that they operate. So I made an assumption that we had a normally closed solenoid valve pictured like that E2 model right up there, and we did not, when in fact we had a normally open solenoid valve like the OE25. Okay, so when you power the solenoid valve, it closes it. And they basically just did it for defrost reasons, would be my assumption. But that's not normal, so you know, sometimes you have to remember that there is different stuff out there and you can't just always assume. I don't know why I remembered that, but we'll turn it back on now. And the compressor will fire up. And she's running. So over here, right off the top of my head, I really don't understand why they use those, but system A right there. So it's normally open, and when you energize it, it closes the valve. So, and again, thinking the way they had it wired on the defrost clock totally makes sense too. I was just kind of making an assumption off of a normal defrost clock wiring, and I really didn't pay attention. So this could have been a callback, you know. I could have left and then be like, oh yeah, it's working, it'll be down to temp, and then walked away, you know. Luckily I went down to the box. But anyways, we're gonna go downstairs and wire up that temp control now. So this is my temp control right here. It's gonna be a super simple mount. What's interesting though is they have their own dedicated circuit for the temp control and the solenoid, which is good, but it's unique. Usually don't see that. So I'll mark it panel E number 34 for the next guy with the new control. All right, got the control installed, got a nice backlight on it. We're gonna go through the settings. T5 as my set point. I'm gonna keep it at 36. And then differential 3 degrees, so that means it's going to turn on 37, 38, 39, right at the top end of 39. You know, I might put it down to 35, but these controls, they turn on at the top end of the differential. So if you set it for 35, you got a 3 degree differential, 36, 37, 38, it's going to turn on right at 39. So yeah, we'll go ahead and change that to 35. Let's go back. Cool. Differential compressor starts per hour, that needs to be 0 because that's essentially going to be a delay, and we don't want that, not on refrigeration. So defrost per day, we got it set to 6. Defrost time, we got it set to 15. So 6 times a day it's going to do a 15-minute defrost. These are alarms, high, low. I don't care about any of that stuff. So we're going to go ahead and let it be. I'm going to watch the box come down in temperature and gather the models and serial numbers of the evaporators too. I love the big display on the Ketatherm, super nice. So the customer will be happy because now they'll know when it's in defrost too, because it'll say DEF right on the control. All right, well this thing's down to temp. I did a quick leak check on the evaps, nothing really popped up. I'll bring up the service valve up on the roof that's leaking to them. I'm pretty sure they're not gonna fix it right now. They're just gonna see how long it takes to run out of refrigerant again. But you know, of course, I'll let them make those decisions, so.
All right, I want to cover a few things because I know there's going to be a few questions, okay? First off, you know, the whole big picture approach, really important. Now, my customers are always involved in the decision-making process, okay? Yes, they did just call me out about a walk-in cooler not working, and yes, it was as simple as a time clock, okay? Yes, I could have just put in a new time clock and called it a day, but I got the customer involved. We talked about everything that I saw, low refrigerant charge, dirty condenser. Hey, you know, and I came up with some solutions, and they believed in what I told them, and we went ahead and went with my suggestions. So we cleaned the refrigeration rack, we topped off the charge, and we eliminated the defrost clock. So That is an important thing because, you know, now we don't have to worry about setting the time on a defrost clock, okay? You only want to do that in certain situations, though, because the cool thing about a defrost clock, especially the one that was here before, was we could do a long defrost in the middle of the night, but then normal defrost during the day, okay? Now, with the key to therm temp plus defrost controller that I put in there, we don't really have the ability to do different defrosts at different times of the day, but it still will work just fine in my situation. So you got to be cautious. Don't just always assume. But by putting in that key to therm temp plus defrost controller, I eliminated the defrost clock on the roof. So now the customer has the ability to know themselves whether or not the equipment is in defrost, because they had no other way other than, hey, my temperatures are high, I wonder if it's in defrost, kind of a thing, right? Well, now they're going to have a big bright display on that key to therm temp plus defrost controller that says DEF, you know, and I can actually walk them through canceling that defrost too. So, all right, something to think about. Now, when it comes to the refrigerant leak, like I predicted, they really didn't want to do anything else about it. They want to see, you know, how long it lasts and if we're going to have to add gas again. So that's, you know, the customer's wishes. So that's what I did. We just topped off the charge and we'll keep an eye on it. Okay, I want to address filling up the receiver, okay? Now, that unit has a head pressure control valve pictured like this one right here, okay? This is a cutaway that I did on a LAC valve, okay? And essentially, this floods the condenser with refrigerant in a nutshell to make it seem like it's hotter outside than it is, okay? That's the easiest explanation. Now, there's a lot more technical details that go into it, but the important thing to understand is that when this thing floods the condenser, there needs to be a precise amount of refrigerant in the system. And if it does not have that perfect amount of refrigerant, then the system is going to be affected adversely. You're going to feed vapor refrigerant to your expansion valve, which is not good. Okay, expansion valves need liquid refrigerant going to them all the time. A solid column of liquid refrigerant, okay? So we have to have that set amount of refrigerant in the system for the head pressure control valve to work properly, okay? Or we call that the flooded charge or the winter charge, okay? On a side note, just because we call it the winter charge on a normally operating system does not mean that you take gas out in the summer and put gas in the winter, okay? That's not correct. We'll cover that in another thing. But, all right, we need that perfect amount of refrigerant in the system. The best way to do it on a standard copper tube and fin condenser is to use the Sporlan method 90-30-1. Just Google search Sporlan 90-30-1. It'll explain to you how to calculate and charge for the flooded charge, okay? But there's some problems in the field. In this situation, we walked up to the system. It was not flashing, okay? There was no indication that it was low on refrigerant other than when I pumped it down, the liquid level was not where I left it back in September, okay? So with that being said, in this situation, we don't know how much refrigerant it needs, okay? If we do the calculated charge, I can guarantee you it's not going to be 3/4 of the receiver like I filled it up, okay? But that's just kind of a rule of thumb for when you're in the field. 3/4 of the receiver pumped down is the maximum amount of refrigerant that you can put in the system. Understand, theoretically, we're putting too much refrigerant in the system and or have unnecessary amounts of refrigerant in the system, okay? Typically, manufacturers size their equipment so that way it has the proper flooded charge, nowhere near 3/4, okay? But again, 3/4 is just a field method because we know we can't put any more refrigerant in that system because for safety reasons, you can't put more than 90 or 80% of the charge, you know, into the receiver. But that is a shortcut method of me pumping the system down and checking the liquid level and marking it. We could also do the same thing if we calculated the liquid level using the Sporlan 90-30-1 method and then mark the receiver. Then we're good to go too. We calculated it for the coldest temperature. We know we have enough refrigerant in the system, okay? So if you can, you always want to do that because technically we added an extra 3-4 pounds of refrigerant to the system. Now, on a system like this, 3 or 4 pounds is not that big of a deal. That's a marginal number. But when you get into big systems, built-up systems, supermarket systems, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of pounds, if not more, of extra refrigerant that's not needed. That's a huge cost to the customer. So you want to be cautious about that kind of stuff. You have to find the fine line between being practical and, you know, spending too much money and that kind of stuff, okay? But understand The 3/4 liquid level, that is a shortcut essentially. Okay. Of course, I like to calculate the flooded charge as much as possible and put the exact amount of refrigerant needed in the system, but sometimes that's not always practical, especially when you walk up to a system just like in this situation where it's not showing indications of being low on charge when you're there. So you don't know if how much you need to add to the system. So that's kind of a tricky thing. So hopefully you guys understand that. So we got the customer up and running. All right. Now in this situation, when I first went out to the call, it was raining outside. I drove through that thunderstorm to get there. And then it was kind of off and on while I was on the roof, starting to hail and stuff just a little bit. But I was waiting for that storm that I drove through to get there. And it did come right after I got off the roof. So I wanted to get in and out of there. So with the customer's approval, I got up there, I took out those defrosts, got them through the night temporarily, came back the next day and went through everything, cleaned the rack, got the system up and running, topped off the charge, installed the new temperature controller, eliminated the defrost clock on the roof, and the customer is happy. Okay. But that is how I approach these service calls. Again, big picture diagnoses, right? Again, with the customer's approval. Yes, I could have gone out there and just thrown a defrost module and walked away, but I wouldn't have seen or prevented the future service call because the refrigerant level was getting low. I wouldn't have prevented the future service call because the condenser was dirty. So I look at everything, and with the customer's approval, I give them a big picture repair. Okay. Now I say this often and I'll say it again, just because we give a big picture diagnoses and just because we give a big picture quote doesn't always mean the customer is going to go for the big picture repair. Okay. But the way that I approach it is give the customer all the facts, give them your opinions and let them make the decisions. Okay. And document everything. If they chose not to do something, document it. So that way it doesn't come back to bite you in the butt. But I always try to look at the big picture, even when it's raining, even when, I just want to go home. I don't want to dig into this stuff. We're always looking at the big picture. Okay. Because for me right now, I'm super slow in Southern California. Restaurants are just about to start opening up to limited in dining room capacity for the first time in months. Okay. We're dead. Nobody's getting their hours. When I'm out there, I need to find work, not make work. I'm never being dishonest, but I have my eyes open when I walk into that restaurant. I ask the customer questions. When I walk into work on the walk-in cooler, hey, how's everything else going? Everything going okay? Anything you want me to look at? You notice any issues? I bring up to them, hey, you're about to open up your dining room. Would you like me to go through your ACs just to make sure they're tip-top? They say no. Okay, but at least I'm just putting it out there. Hey, I'm here. You can save a truck charge. Would you like me to dig into this now or look into this or... so I'm always looking and trying to be as honest and give the customer the best bang for their buck. All right. I really, really appreciate you guys making it to the end of the video. Please, if you haven't already, check out my website, HVACRvideos.com. Help to support the channel. We have merch available on there. There's other ways you guys can help to support this HVACR videos project. Okay. If you're interested in purchasing any tools, check out TrueTechTools.com. Use my offer code BIGPICTURE. And also in the show notes of this video are some affiliate links. If you click on any of those affiliate links for any of the tools you might be interested in, I actually get an extra commission for that. It does help to support the channel. Okay. We also have a Patreon page. We have YouTube channel members, which is just a way to support the channel on a reoccurring basis. Obviously, HVACRvideos.com for merch. Please, if you haven't already, also check out our new YouTube channel, HVACR Tools, where myself and the Overtime crew are going to be doing tool reviews. Give us some support on that channel. And check us out on the HVAC Overtime live stream, Friday evenings about 6:05 p.m. We usually go on there and hang out. It's a little bit different of a live stream than I do on this channel, but it's a cool hangout with some friends, just relaxing, having a couple drinks, and just talking about the week and stuff. Okay. I also do live streams on my channel Monday evenings, 5 p.m. Pacific, as long as I can get off work. And that's it, guys. Again, thank you guys so very much. I really appreciate you all, and we will catch you on the next one. Okay.